Second. Okay. All right. Second. All right. Okay. So now if anybody wants to watch, they can watch that. Thank you. Welcome if anybody's on the outside looking in on YouTube. And now let's join in Elad on page 342. Elad Adonai kol hamasim baruch borach befikon shama galo v'tuvo male olam medat utvuna savivim oto hamigae achayot hakodesh benedor bechavod al hamerkava zechut umisha לפני חסו חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו יצרם בדעת בבינה ובהשכל כוח גבורה נתן בהם להיות מושלים בקרב תבל מלאים זיו ומפיקים נוגה נועזי בם בכל העולם שמחים בצאתם ששים בבם עושים באימה רצון קונם פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמו צולה ורינה לזכר מלכותו קרא לשמש ויזרח אור רע והתקין צורת הבנה שבח נותנים לכל צבא מרום תפארת גדולה שרפים ואופנים וחיות הקודש. And we continue page 344. 344. The vision of the angels giving praise. כולם אוהבים, כולם גיבורים, גיבורים, כולם גיבורים. כולם עושים ברצון קנם, כולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושת תורה, בשירה וזמרה, ברכים, שבחים, פרעים, מריצים, מקדישים, ממליכים, שם האל, המלך הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, קדוש הוא, כולם מקבלים עליהם, על מלכות שמיים זה מזה, נותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש לעצמם, בנחת ורוב סבינו מהקדושה, כולם כחרם וירא, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, ארץ כבודו. באופנים וחיות הקודש, ברעש כרם מתנסים לעומת שרפים, דם שפים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני, ממקומו. החדש על ציון תאיר, נזכח לנמר על יורו, ברוך אתה אדוני יוצא, המאורות, page 346. אבל רבה אהבתנו, אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה ויתרה, חמת עלינו, אבינו מלכנו, בעבור אבותינו, שבטחו בך, אבינו מלכנו, ותלמדם חוקי חיים, כן תחננו תלמדנו, אבינו האב הרחמן, המרחם רחם עלינו, ותן בליבנו להבין, להשכיל, לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמוע ולעשות, ולקיים כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה, והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה ולרע את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך, והביאנו לשלום ארבע כנפות הארץ, תוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו. כי ארבע ישות אתה, ונובחת מקלם ולשון, קרבתנו לשמך הגדול, סלע באמת, להודות לך וליחדך באהבה, ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמויסה באהבה. And together we take the tzitzit in hand, and as we've been talking about the Mishnah, we must be fully focused on the Shema, even when we don't think we're focused. And so the custom to cover the eye in order to retain that focus. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Together. V'ahavta et Adonai lecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol ma'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinamtam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shiftecha b'veitecha v'lechta b'derech shachbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshatam na'ot al yodecha v'hayu l'totofot bein einecha u'chtaftam. And we continue the middle paragraph on our own. That the days and days of your children on this land will endure forever as the days of the heavens over the earth.
You're using the meaning ID and not for the. Do you have the ID?
Let her try go on to YouTube, see if it shows up.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me see. Wait a minute. You know what? Let me see if I have 1 second. Let me finish this. Akan bebegem lo tor benot no tzitzit naf befet echad v'elechem letzitzit v'ritem oschatem ekom mitzvot arona v'asitem otam lo tator achrei levchem v'achrei nechem asher tem zonim achreihem למען תזכרו ועשיתם ekom mitzvotai tem keroshim lelechem ani arona echem asher הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים ואני אליכם אמת לכם אמת. Let me find this. Give me 1 second. There's a place where I get to see the. 1 second. There is this. Oh. Quick one. Invite. Okay, have a look on Hollywood Temple Bethel email. Let's see if it shows up. I tried that. There, we're going to continue. Eli, hey, good Jarvis. Did she get it? So ask her if she got it. Yeah. Okay, see if she just connected. Yeah, okay, we're going to continue. On page 350, Tilo le'yon baruchum mevorach Moshe v'nei Yisrael chanashir absimcha rabba v'chulam mi kamocha v'elim Adonai mi kamocha נדע בקודש נורתי לו, אוסף אלה, שירה חדשה, שבחו גאולים לשמך, אספת הים, שירה חדשה, שבחו גאולים לשמך, אספת הים, יחד כולם הודו, יחד כולם הודו, וימלכו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה עזת ישראל, עובדיכנו מך, יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל ברוך אדוני גואל Israel. And together we open the opening of the Amidah, and then page 354, and then silently 360 to 364, Hebrew, English, and our own meditations. Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Upi Yagiti Latecha, Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu, Elei Avotenu, Elei Avraham, Elei Yitzchak, Elei Yaakov, Ha'el, Hagadol, Hagibov, Anara, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Bekoneh HaKol, V'zocher Chazdei Avot, Yovnehem, L'man Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer Mashiach Magen. Baruch Adonai Magen Abraham Ata Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechai Metim Ata Rav Lo Shia Mitata Mechakel Chayim Bechesed Mechaye Metim Berachamim Rabim Tzomech Noflim Berofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei afar mikamocha ba'al gevurot umido melech melech memit umechayeh umatzmiach Yeshua ne'emon ata chayot metim baruch Adonai mechayeh hametim baruch Adonai hakadosh yismach shemcha yismach Moshe melech. One more. Okay. Okay. Let's go back to page 358, Vishamru. And let me see if I can get this one up for us. It's there you go. And is it okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, a little bit of a nudnik there. Okay, we're going to do without this nudnik. I'm sorry, that's not me. the warning signs. Let's do Vishamra together. All together. Shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש שבת ויהי נפש שבת ויהי נפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Let's go to Sim Shalom, do that together. If I can't get this electronics to work, we'll do it. What is it? Unplug. Sim Shalom, together. Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Ba'olam. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael amecha. B'cheinu avinu kulanu ke'echad be'or panecha. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Ba'olam. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Ki ve'opanecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Torat Chayim v'avat chesed tzedakah uvracha v'rachamim v'chayim v'shalom Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha Ba'olam. Sim Shalom Tova Uvracha. Baruch Adonai v'rechem Moiseh b'shalom. Now, I'm not going to, a little bit of learning, I'm not going to fiddle with the electronics here. I have the selection that I want here in front of us. And just if anybody wants to see it online. All right, there we go. We're going into Mishnah Gimel. We started with the question of focus and concentration, and when somebody has passed away, who's obligated, who's not obligated for the Shema and the prayers. And then they go on into it, and I'm not going to go into depth in it. It happens after the burial, immediately as people are going to go back to their places, maybe to the home of the deceased, of the mourners, to pay their condolences as they sit Shiva. They organize the rows, you're familiar with this, going in rows of two so that the mourners pass through. So at that time, do they say the Shema, if it's time for the Shema or for the Amida, and those who are really in front at that moment, they're busy giving the condolences, Tanchumim in the Shemaim or Amakom in the Chemetchem. Whereas those people are just standing outside and not actively engaged, so Shema comes, they recite. Now the one that I really want to get to is Mishnah, the third Mishnah here, which is very problematic because it says, Nashim, Vavadim Uktanim, Pturim mikriyat shema u'minat tefillin. Okay, let's go back. Children are not obliged to recite the Shema at a specific time, although we teach the children, right? If you know that, we teach the Shema already when the child is able to speak. And tefillin, for sure, yeah, we understand. And the basic assumption of tefillin is also child is not obliged by time-bound mitzvot, and also he cannot take care of the tefillin properly, put it away properly. It's closer to bar mitzvah age. But the kriya, right? So now avadim, servants also, they are not their own authority. They really lack agency because of the status of servant. So you can also understand the boss calls them, they have to drop everything they're doing. The boss is upset, they don't want to get upset. Okay, so we absolve them of the Shema and of tefillin also. Now the presumption is, well, tefillin, are these Jewish servants or non-Jewish servants? Obviously, they must be only dealing with Jewish servants, right? That would be the obvious. So then the question is, then we come into the question: what happens with, these are basically bound indentured servants? Non-Jewish servants would not be bound by this. But now we come to nashim, women. This affects the status of women, right? Women are not bound to recite Kriyat Shema at its particular time. And tefillin. Well, this leads us to a great variety of problems, right? Today, we take a different perspective, right? We assume today, generally, and you find it increasingly even in Orthodox circles, women are taking upon themselves more and more of the obligations, even though they're not obliged to. We do know that women wore tefillin in the Middle Ages. There were women who were heads of yeshivas who wore tefillin. There were women who were heads of Hasidic groups who put on tefillin. Did. So it is not prohibited to a woman. It's just not obligatory. What's the difference? Again, the presumption is the woman, as long as she's under the father's household, she's running errands and she has to listen to dad and mom. Yeah.
Why is not obligatory to the woman? Because in the Shema, it's for everybody.
Okay. So the question is, so on the Shema, so the question is the Shema obligatory in its time? The question is about time bound, because you are supposed to say the Shema by a certain time in the morning and by a certain time in the evening. So again, we have this problem. Let's say the woman is unmarried. She's still living in dad's and mom's house. Dad calls her. He needs her. Does she say the Shema or does she go to dad? I don't want to get in trouble with dad. So I let her off the hook. Same thing for the child, underage, right? So she's over age. She's above age, but still under dad's household. She's married. Husband calls. She's going to say, wait, don't talk to me. We're going to avoid the problem. So in general, women were absolved from those commands that have a time-bound responsibility. For that very reason, because the woman was not an independent agent completely. I mean, it's a fact of antiquity. It's a fact until the beginnings of modern time, right? Until you could hire a nanny. Right?
The Torah doesn't exclude the woman. That you should do.
Yeah, except we know in the Torah there's specifics. Some of the commands are phrased specifically masculine. Some are phrased, and it's a matter of how the phrasing is used. In some certain cases, the wording is specifically masculine. In some cases, specifically non-gender. So if it's in the plural, for example, plural is automatically assumed male and female. If it's in the singular, it is either male or female, right? So some of the rules we know are specific male, some specific female. Obviously, women's purification, specifically female. Women's purification after childbirth. Then we get into modern times already. Gender dysphoria, that's a whole big different ballgame by itself. The rabbis actually deal with that question. It's not a new question. They really deal with that. People who have, we may say, non-definite gender, physical, biological gender, visible biological gender. And they deal with that question. Because we like to buttonhole everybody nicely. It happens to be a Jewish characteristic. So you have the male, a female. What if you're in between? But that's a separate section, separate discussion. So the argument left against women putting on tefillin was that the woman may be sometimes in a ritual impurity. But again, tefillin and mezuzah and the Torah are objects that cannot be made impure. There's a whole categorization, since they carry their own state of taboo, you can't make it more taboo. Therefore, that doesn't affect. The woman can go up to the Torah if she has a period or not, right? That is only then effective in regard to sacrificing the sanctuary and her husband. Otherwise, no other effect. And we do not ask questions of men ever if they're in a state of impurity. And most men are in one way or another in a state of ritual impurity also. So again, if it doesn't bind, that problem is eliminated. So today we would say, well, what about widows? What about divorcees? They're no longer bound to anybody's authority. So it is one of these cases where since I made a categorization, it overrides to everybody else. We would say today, temporary, that given the structure of contemporary society, the woman is no longer dependent upon. In many cases, the male is dependent upon rather than the female dependent upon, where the women can have jobs and independence and not the men. In that case, it is void. It is void. But that's right. However, what else do they? They are obligated, and this is interesting, chayavin batfilah. They are obliged to recite the Amida. Now, the Amida, we have a Shachrit, you have a Mincha and a Mariv Amida, morning, noon, and afternoon Amida, or evening Amida. Or isn't that time bound? But the answer is, there's no difference between the morning Amida and the afternoon Amida and the evening Amida. There's a slight change in the wording of Sim Shalom or Shalom Rav. That's not a significant change. Therefore, if you miss the time, it doesn't matter. All times are still valid. So therefore, the woman and the child would be expected to recite. Right? Mezuzah. What if a woman owns a house? She puts up the door in the house. Yes, she must have the mezuzah in the house. Right? Birkat Hamazon. Eat. Whatever time you eat, doesn't matter. You say Birkat Hamazon. So it's not time bound. Right? Mezuzah is also not time bound. Tefillin is time bound, for example, I might say that, but mezuzah is not. Right? Difference. So those are, it raises a whole question of category of status of women. Yeah, go ahead.
Before it doesn't specify why to use the tefillin, it specifies that you have to wear the tefillin. This has been ruled that means. Yeah. It is a rabbinic definition. Samaritan Jews do not wear tefillin because it doesn't use the word tefillin. It says ukshatam al yadecha. Well, what is it that I'm tying? Is it figurative? So Samaritan says figurative. Karaite Jews also the same thing. They say uletotafot beinenecha totafot. We have no actual authority what the word totefet means, and we translate it as frontlets. As we have no actual authority, it is again figurative. It is ancient, however, and we know it's ancient because in the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is even, these are Jews outside of the rabbinic world. These are Jews who rejected the rabbinic authority. And the rabbinic authority is just beginning to take shape in that time. We're looking anywhere between 100 before the year zero to 100 after year zero, more or less. They had tefillin. And they had the mezuzah, as we have. At the same time, they may have some different verses, but they had the idea of tefillin. So I know that it's actually very ancient. Goes back very far. So again, it's not in writing, but again, Judaism is not ever what is in writing. Because all of the Torah is an unexplicit code. all the Torah laws, whether it's social, civil, or ritual laws, you will see that all of them are incomplete. They are there to highlight something that is known, or to clarify something that is already known. So the question is then, if it is already known, what is it that is known that has not been written? Well, that only comes from one place, which is from traditions. And traditions generally don't get written down. It's just people have been doing it. So we assume in Jewish law that all these traditions were given to Moses at Sinai. But again, that is maybe a little bit of embellishment. All we do know is that these are old traditions that go far back. Did all of the ancient tribes of Israel observe all of these traditions? No. How do we know that? Because we have different books outside of the Bible that reference some other tradition, like the calendar, reference different calendar dates and so on. And the Dead Sea scribes themselves have some reference. In the New Testament, gives us sometimes insight because they talk about things that are still being debated and just taking one side or another in a debate about what is observed. It's about hand washing, for example, or does one pluck if one is gleaning in the field on Shabbat. These are debates that are going on. So that's the women's status. Then that's a good question. Yeah.
Do reform require also to or they don't?
Reform does not have requirements, except on the ethical, right? And I don't know if they've ever came out with a official phrasing, even of ethical requirements, to say this is what we must do in situation X, Y, Z. Principle of reform is more based on, as friends of mine, reform rabbi pointed out, autonomy. The individual has to make the ultimate decision, and based on that, reform rabbis do put on tefillin, but it's not, again, not as an obligation, not specifically as an obligation. So I know reform rabbis who live like Orthodox rabbis, almost, right? But the obligation is not imposed on the Jewish community anymore. That's the big difference. Conservative community still feels we have obligations. We may stretch them a lot, use electricity, not use electricity, but still the principle of obligation still is in effect. Okay, so now we're waiting for our meeting to get in. Why don't we do this? We'll open the Torah, open the Ark, carry the Torah around, and then we'll go from there. We'll do at least part of the Torah reading if we don't have a real minyan. This is a very, very interesting reading. Very interesting reading. Page 398. 94, thank you. אין כמוך אלוהים אדוני ואין כמעשיך מלכות מלכות כל עמים וממשלתך בכל דור ודור אדוני מלך אדוני מלך אדוני לא לעולם ועד אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום, עבור רחמים, היטיבה ברצונך את ציון, תבנה חומות ירושלים, תבנה חומות ירושלים, כי בך לבטחנו מלך חירום ונישא, אדון עולמים. ויהי בזרעון ויאמר משה קומה אדוני ויפוצו אויביך וינוסו משנאיך מפניך כי מציון תצא תורה כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר אדוני מירושלים ברוך שנתן תורה תורה ברוך שנתן תורה תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו
Please pay attention to that line that Vayhi b'Saron, because that's very important for our Torah reading today. And we go ahead, page 398. Be'anarachet v'lishmei kadisha yakira ana amatush bechan be'anarachet v'lishmei kadisha yakira ana amatush bechan Yehrava kadamach detiftach libi beoraita betashlim mishalin delibi v'liba dechalamach Yisrael letavu chayin v'lishlam. Amen. Okay, take out the Torah. The regular, the official. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. Gadolul Adonai Yitin Radema Shemo Yachdav Lecha Adonai HaGadol VeHaGevora VeHaTiferet VaNetzach VeHahod Ki Chov HaShamayim Uvaret Ki Chov HaShamayim Uvaret V'Haranai HaMamlecha VaMitnaseh L'chol Rosh Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Ve'ishtachavu L'Adam Raglav Kadoshu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Ve'ishtachavu L'Har Kacho Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. You may be seated. We'll sit down waiting for the meeting to come. Okay, then have it ready. Yeah, close the ark. Okay. We'll move back a little bit. We have the lights. Yeah, this is a good point. Okay. Now it can be seen and we're facing the ark. All right, so now today's Torah reading. This is, I told you to pay good attention to the to Vayhi b'Saron as we sang it, right? So we're starting on page. Let me get my page out here for us. Ba'alotcha, page 609. 609. So in the middle of the portion, but Ba'alotcha begins actually on 605, and if you follow from the very beginning, Bamidbar, it's very clear that we're going to be taken through the wilderness, and it should be very exciting. Think of it; it's the way it's starting out. We have counting, we need to know who's who. We have the order of march. We have who is responsible for what, especially for the Mishkan, how we're going to put it together, how we're going to take it apart. As we're watching across the desert, that was in Baalot, the first one, Bamidbar. Then last week, Naso, we come to rules that we need to have in place as we're about to march, and the particular things that create a break in relationship either between the human being and God, such as impurities, or jealousy between a husband and wife, or deception between one human and another in
business dealings and in property and theft. All these create a dislocation. And then we have the blessing of the Kohanim, which is there to give us a sense of, what can we say, spiritual well-being. Everything is good, the Kohanim, right? So that's more or less how it's proceeding. Now, into this portion, up right into halfway into the portion, it's going even better. It's getting better and better. So, Baalotcha, we start reminding us now, as we're going to be marching, when you do put the tabernacle into place, you have to have the candelabra, right? And so we get the origin of the menorah, setting it up, that you have 7 candelabra, 7, 7, 7. We had it somewhere here. Where did it go? Oh, up over there. That one has 8 for Hanukkah. We have 7, right? And facing a central light. Like the sense idea, 1 for each day of the week, facing, or it's 6 and 6, sorry, it's 3 and 3, facing a central light. Right? The days of the week facing Shabbat, or the planets facing God. Either way, one can place it that way. The symbol of the menorah. And right, so then it goes on into, right, if somebody is impure, again, the Levites purify. We're going to make the ceremony for the Levites to continue. You can see page 606, 607. They shall be purified. And now we go to 608, and we are ready for the order of March. It is now the first month of the second year, right? First month of the second year. Wait a minute. We want to make sure we're going to do Passover properly, because now we're marching. What are we going to do when we're marching? Somebody's pure, impure. We're going to do this, right? All these last minute things, because we want to be ready for the order of March. And cleanliness and so on, what should be done, right? Purifications. Again, now, okay. Also, now how are we going to know we're going to march? This great cloud during the daytime is going to be visible to us, so we know where we're going. At nighttime, fire, right? All this wonderful, wonderful. Everything is getting set up. And we continue to page 610, trumpets. You're going to march, you got to call the order to march. For this march, we're not going to use the shofar, we're going to use metal trumpets. Which is a good indication how far back metal trumpets were used. So that if we're using the shofar, to remind us how even farther back, we had to pick use of the shofar for very emotional events, like the high holidays, right? The shofar, because of the antiquity of the sound. Whereas the trumpet gives a very clear, strong sound. The shofar, you have this wavy, deep sound that resonates. Right? But they want these clear trumpets to lead us in the march, right? So everything is all very good. Everything is very good. And now who's marching now? We're setting out. First tribe, the second tribe, the third tribe, and so on. All wonderful. And now as we're getting to March, Ruel or Yitro, Moses' brother-in-law, father-in-law, says, now it's time for me to go back to you're going forward, now I've got to go back to my people. Everything's ready. Everything's ready. We come to our the highlight, which is page 620, 613. And you look at 613, what do we get? Vayhibas Haran. That's why I told you to pay attention to it. As the ark is marching out, and it is a military formation, God arise and scatter your enemies. And then when the ark is brought back in, which is what we chant when we put the Torah back in the ark, right? Return, O Lord, to the thousands and thousands of your people of Israel. Notice it is also framed inside 2 letters Nun, written backwards. That is the adaptation of what the Greeks called parasimana, or we call parenthesis in contemporary English, sign indicating that this is not part of the original text, just as in English, when you have to do submitting your essays to the editor, anything that is not essential to the text is to be put inside parentheses, a parenthetical. There's a parenthetical. Is it a parenthetical? Rabbi said it didn't belong here. It says part of another book. So how many books of the Bible does the rabbi say we have? Actually, we keep on talking about 5 books of the Bible. He said, no, really we have 7. It says Numbers, if you look at it, there's really 3 different books. The Numbers up to here is this beautiful, wonderful moving up. Numbers after here, we're going to find out, is a big collapse till we get things right.
Well,
And then this is
I don't see it that way because during the first year, they were under the protection of the Canaanites. Were living together and probably protected from what they were near the Sinai.
right.
But they were doing the planning, and the planning is that as we go forward, we'll organize ourselves.
Everything is good.
And this is the organization.
Everything is wonderful. They got through the golden calf incident. Everything is okay. They learned how to take care of themselves. So a year or so is going by, almost 2 years. Wonderful. Everything is good.
Yeah, but the problem is when they face reality,
Yeah.
they see,
So,
I see that
right.
they send the spies.
Even before they send the tribes, even before they hit reality, all of a sudden, and so the rabbi said, this is put in to indicate this major break. This, they say, is really from another work. So they say, how do we know? What's the smallest book that one can have that still can be considered an actual book to itself? They say, well, this one exists as a book by itself. So there's how many lines? It's like about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I think that's
Well, like about 20 words is sufficient to indicate a book to itself.
Yeah.
Now, we know that there are many books that were not put into the Bible as we have it.
Mhm.
The Bible refers, in fact, Book of Numbers makes several references to books that are not in here. So we know, and this is one. Yeah, that's what we know. So the references. And then later, Jewish sources will try to reconstruct what are these books.
Yeah,
This
because
one.
I look at it as kind of a normal evolution, that you plan while you're protected,
Yeah,
you have the beautiful planning, you do even more, you construct the scan, so everybody contribute and you have a portal in the scan, and they have more. And then after sending the spies,
yeah.
people rebel against Moses, and they say, "What you have."
Right, right. When truth, right.
And
So
then-
it's but it actually it falls apart before that. Next week is the size, but the everything begins to fall apart. It's like like the rocket launch, SpaceX and the other rockets. They're sitting, everything is put together nicely on the launch pad, and then it goes up and boom, it doesn't work. Right? So that's why the rabbi said, really, you have. What is this great book of expectations? The other is a book of reality. So that's why I said they're really different books, expectations and reality. So that the Vayhi Saw comes to serve denouement, or this turning point.
And maybe the people wrote it in such a way that to put the things together, but essentially after the revolution,
Yeah,
when Moses essentially settled the things,
Yeah.
the Levites become officially Levites,
right.
and with all the rules and so on, and the Israel. So I think that then they go back and put the revolution together with the plan together.
Well, the Levite revolution had been with the golden calf. That's where they're the ones who are the Revolutionary Guard.
I think that the revolution was when they saw that the planning of just going to conquer Canaan was not going to
Yeah.
be easy.
But you see, there's another revolution of the
And then-
Levites, where they were part of the Levites rebel. That's with Korach.
Yeah,
Right, where they have you have multiple uprisings. But here in this portion, but look what in this portion, it's even before that. As soon as they walk away. So the rabbi said, why? So as long as they were at Sinai, they're willing to listen to God. And it says, if you look at it carefully, that they go, page 613, for this, right before the parenthesis, it says they go 3 days from Sinai. So the rabbi asks the question, why are they 3 days is pretty fast to get where they want to go. So why are they going so fast? He said, each one tells the other one, let's get away from Sinai before they give us another commandment. Too many commandments, let's go away. That's one explanation. Second explanation is that as soon as they're away from Sinai, they no longer felt the same way. Moving away. So as you move away from God, move away from inspiration, you get into the real world, it gets at you. And so what's the real world get at you? You can see right away the next part, right? They're hungry. They don't like the food. It's like a kid at camp. Food's no good, right? And so there's a plague. And what do they say? How wonderful it was in Egypt, right? And you hear this all over the time. They get out of the Sinai, they get out of Egypt. It was good in Egypt. They didn't bury. We had graves in Egypt. Okay, Egypt was so good. Look at this. Look what we ate in Egypt. Look at line 5. They were crying. Oh, we want steak. We want. Because what are they eating? They're eating the manna, right? The gatherings, whatever they've got in the desert. The Chanat Daga. Oh, now I remember the fish. We want steak, but we remember the fish, trout, salmon, whatever it was they had in the Nile. Oh, the Nile perch. Right, it's still a very popular fish today. The Sichat Nile in Israel, right? That's a great fish, which we used to eat in Egypt. They probably paid premium for it in Egypt. Right, and the vegetables, kishaim, which you translate as cucumbers or squash, and the avatichim, the melons that we had, v'tachatzir, that translate leeks, v'psalim, the onions, v'tashuim, the garlics. Oh, it was so good in Egypt. That was like a 4-star who gives the stars Michelin restaurant, right? That was Egypt, right? And I think that is, by the way, true in all the revolutions. When the revolution comes to pass, and you look at what you got, say, gee, it wasn't so bad before the revolution, right? What we call the Thermidorian reaction. We made a mistake going out of Egypt, right? And now, so they get the quail, and they get 70 elders, and so on, all sorts of things that take place here. Moses trying to find people, 70 people of inspiration, and a little side that there are 2 people who were not among the original 70 still, who suddenly have the spirit of inspiration, prophetic spirit, and we don't know what to do with them. And Moses says, I wish everybody would have that spirit. And then the worst thing, the coup de grace, really, it's the coup de grace for Moses, is Miriam, his own sister, now turns on him. This is the most painful thing of all, right? That your own sister would turn on you. Now, what is she turning on him? That's the end of this portion. It's a Cushite woman, Isha Kushit. We usually translate as an Ethiopian or Black African. Cushite would indicate Nubian, South Africa, southern Egypt, Sudan. Is it that there's a slave people? No, Nubians happen to be the people who rule Egypt at one point. Also, Josephus tells us about Moses having, as a young prince, going into battle against the Ethiopians or the Nubians and marrying a Nubian wife. So that may be the story. Yeah. By the way, in the Ten Commandments movie, have you ever watched the Ten Commandments movie? Young Moses comes back from battle against Ethiopia. That's based on this interpretation. It's Josephus has it.
I was reading recently that the mother of Qatar's emir, she's like Nubian heritage, I guess, from Libya. Can it also be Libyan?
No, Libyan is completely different. Libya is North African. Yeah, Libya is North African. That's very different. North Africa is completely different from sub-Saharan Africa. Completely
Maybe she's
different.
from that area, like Nubian or something.
Nubia, I don't think anybody uses Nubia anymore as a term. In Egypt, geography, it is it's southern part of Egypt, Sudan, what they call the Nilotic Negroes. In other words, the Black Africans, they live along the Nile, but as you go down, well, usually identify with Ethiopia, except Ethiopia itself is really much further south than the Ethiopia of the Bible, much further south. You ever look on a map. Nubia is much closer to where Sudan is today. Right. So, but she could have had mixed heritage. It's all possible. Anyway, you can see. So the question then comes up: why is she upset with Moses? He takes the woman. Well, is she referring to him taking a second wife? Is she referring to him taking back this Ethiopian wife that he had conquered when he was the young prince, which Josephus records? Or is it really his own wife, Tzipporah, who's Midianite, and the word Cushi meaning just anybody who's darker skinned than the northern Semites along the Mediterranean coast and the Egyptians who are lighter skinned. Then maybe that would be the indication, because being in the desert, you tend to be darker. Now, that's a possibility. So then they ask the question, well, okay, if it's a second wife, she's protecting Tzipporah, very nice of her. What if it's Tzipporah? Because God has been talking to Moses all along, and Moses is too busy to be with his wife. So she's sitting very depressed. And Miriam is defending another woman. She's been abandoned by, that's one of the possibilities. She's been abandoned by Moses. And then God says, no, look, me and Moses, we got a deal. You can't get involved in it. Nobody talks face to face like Moses. You hurt Moses' feelings. She turns white as snow. And in the very end, Moses says, El narafan Allah, God, please heal her, please. And the rabbi said, what is the ideal prayer? The ideal prayer is no more than 5 words. Because Moses didn't need more than 5 words to get his message across. So God says, okay, had she spit in her father's face, she would be sitting outside in the outhouse for 7 days. She's going to sit outside for 7 days. Yeah, okay. It couldn't get bad or worse from here, right? Couldn't get any worse. And then we know the next chapter, it does get worse, right? The spies. So things go down. And of course, we know that later on, 38 years go by and they'll go back up. But it's a reminder of how difficult things are. All right, so we'll do is we'll read some of the portion. I'll read it from the Chumash. We don't have it through Minyan, but okay, and we'll just go to the verses. I'll select some of the verses. I'm not going to try to do full reading. And we'll just go into 609. I'll do the first aliyah here. So the first verse is 19. It is 15 through 18. V'yom hekim et hamishkan, ki sa'anan et hamishkan, lo el aidut ve'erev yaronai yeh al hamishkan, kemar esh ad boker, ken yeh tamid ha'anan yichasenu umar esh laila. ולפיha לא תענן מעל אוהל ואחרי כן ייסעו בני ישראל ובמקום אשר ישכן שם הענן שם יחנו בני ישראל על פי אדוני ייסעו בני ישראל על פי אדוני יחנו כימי אשר ישכן הענן המשכן יחנו. That's the reading about the cloud and the fire on the cloud, and then I'll read the second aliyah, how it continues, page 609. ובריחנן על המשכן ימים רבים ושמרו בני ישראל משמרת אדוני לא ייסעו ויש אשר יחנן ימים מספר על המשכן על פי אדוני יחנו ועל פי אדוני ייסעו ויש אשר יחנן מערב עד בוקר ונעלה חנן בבוקר ונסעו או ים ולילה ונעלה חנן ונסעו או ימים או ימיים או חודש או ימים בריחנן על המשכן לשכון עליו יחנו בני ישראל ולא ייסעו ועל אותו ייסעו על פי אדוני יחנו על פי אדוני ייסעו על משמרת אדוני שמרו על פי אדוני ביד משה. Okay. And we're going to go ahead into the middle part. I'm going to move ahead. Page 612. The farewell of Jethro, Hovav. Notice he has Yithro, Hovav, Ruel. There are several names used all over the place for Yithro, Jethro, reflecting different traditions. By the Druze, who are Lebanon, the Lebanon Hill Country, the Northern Galilee in Israel, the Golan, and parts of Syria, those Druze claim descent from Jethro. They claim to be descent from Jethro. very interesting in DNA studies, there seems to be a little bit of closer affinity in DNA grouping with Druze rather than with other people of the Levant, between Jews and Druze. Maybe it rhymes, maybe that's why. So we go ahead and read. Vayomer Moshe leChovah ben Ruel b'Midyani chotem Moshe nos'im anachnu el hamakom asher Adonai oto eten lachem lecha eten itanu v'itavnu lach ki Adonai diber tov al Yisrael vayomer elav lo elech ki im el atzi el marati elech ve'el nata zot otanu ki al ken yadanu yadata v'anotenu b'midbar v'ayta lanu le'inayim v'yaki telech imanu v'yachato Ahu ashet Adonai imanu etavnu lach v'su meha Adonai derech shloshet yamim v'aron brit Adonai nasa lifneim derech shloshet yamim latur lahem b'menucha v'anan Adonai lehem yomam bin sam min hamachaneh. And now we come to the famous verses in parentheses. Vahi v'zaron v'yomay Moshe kum Adonai futzo evecha v'yanusu misanecha mipanecha uvnecha yom hashuv Adonai revot alfei Yisrael. So those are the key points from our Torah reading. I'm going to invoke prayer for well-being of those who are ill. Shabbat. I have it in here. Mishabach, Havatena, Baham Yitzchak V'Yakov, Sarif Karachel V'Layam. May the Holy One bless be healed. Bless our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Bless and heal. Joe Alexander, Roger Rosen, Liba Batsara, Robert Drato, Barbara Drato, Robert Drato, Hannah Batsara, Ronnie Durana, Shirley Sheva, Rachel Flalo, Eliel Ben Hannah, Harriet Levins, Riva Sherman, Erb Mormon, Rose Ben Rivka Bonish, Inga Bus, Reno Sepien, Barbara Mormon, John Dever Robin, Shoshana Batsara, Judy Alkali, Rose Helene Bat Rivka, Hannah Sarlea Bat Rachel, Richard Zeller, Jeffrey Buck, Alan Whalen, Judy Smith, Marvin Katz, Hannah Sar Bat Kayla Alta, Samuel Smith, Andrea Vasilev, Lava Masha Ben Sarah, Yosef Leah Dorf, Julius Jason, Arthur Vanatek, Mike Dorf, Sophie, the friend of Judy Alkali, Daniel Avidan, Mazal Area, Yitzhak Ben Karola, Yafa Bat Sharifa, Marilyn Fried, Eli Brukim, Vladimir Melamed, Aliza Batya Bat Miriam, Simon Brill, Sam and Julia Smith, Douglas Yoni Worthman, Ronald Rothman, Rachel Bat Helen Leah, and all those who have been afflicted by virus and wars and injured in gun violence and physical violence in this country, and for all those who were kidnapped from their homes on October 7th, and all those who have been injured on behalf of the state of Israel, whether fighting or civilians being attacked by rockets on a daily basis on the north and the south. Well, then we pray speedy recovery. Joe, give me your names, please.
Sima Harlev,
Sima Toilev, Susan Feinberg, Sharon Lippin, Esther Rachel Basiva,
Laban
Moshe Ben Sarah,
Helen
Flax, and Adam Flax.
And David.
And David, what?
Ben Yehuda.
Ben Yehuda.
Tito
Gary, Risha, Ron Rothman,
Carol
John and Julian Eisner, and Wendy Keller, and all those who are ill. We pray for them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yishlach lehem refuah shlema refuat nefesh for their guf. And Shabbatim elazot. Amen. May the Holy One send them healing both in body and in mind to them, to the whole house of Israel. And let's all say Amen. Barbara is home. Carmen is there looking after, because they have not yet set up nurses to come in and help her. But she's happy to have visitors, so you swing by. You know, it's not far from King Street, not far from here. So, and I hope that they were able to get on, at least on YouTube. I couldn't connect. I don't think they were able to connect the
I
link.
said go to YouTube.
Huh?
I told them-
Okay, I hope she found it on YouTube, because I'm not sure on the it. I hope they found it. Very good. So they should be well and stay well. And let's all join in the Misha Berach together. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mikol HaBracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu
Mikol habracha lavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, renewal of body, renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen, Amen. And the Haftarah, we just recite a little bit of the Haftarah. Also, it is the same Haftarah as for Hanukkah. And the reason it's the same one is that it deals with the opening of the Torah portion, which is about setting up a light, 7-branched light in the sanctuary, Ba'alot Ha. And now the children of Israel returned with the approval of the Shah of Iran, Cyrus, who calls on all the captive peoples to return to their lands. The Persians get a bad name in antiquity because they pick a fight with the Greeks. But if not for the fight with the Greeks, they actually were great liberators. They actually were. And all those peoples that were conquered by the Assyrians and Babylonians, they had them go back to their homes. They allowed at least whoever wanted to go back, reestablish. And they developed very good relations with the nations then under the Persian Empire. Right? It was considered actually, in a sense, an ideal sign of a well-organized collectivization of different nationalities or tribes under a larger authority. And so Cyrus actually considered one of the very good examples of successful administration in his day. So anyway, calls the Jews, says, you may come back. They come back, and it ain't the same. It ain't the same. They're very despondent because they come back. The temple's still in ruins, pieces, shabby. They try to put it together again. They're very despondent. And the prophet Zechariah, writing at this time now, tries to build them up and encourages Joshua, who's come in as the priest, and says, don't worry, Joshua. You are the brand plucked from the flames. And he looks to the leader, Zerubbabel, who's bringing the children of Israel back and rebuilding things. He says, don't worry, Zerubbabel, not by power, not by might, but by my spirit, right? And then he says, who is even the great mountain before you, Zerubbabel? It will become flat in your presence, right? Great words of encouragement, chen la, grace and grace to the people of Israel and to the nation being reborn. So I'm going to read the opening of it. Rani b'simchi, page, let me give you the page 620. Second chapter and third chapter of Zechariah. Rani v'simchi b'tzion ki niva v'shanti b'tochech num Adonai v'nevu goyim rabim el Adonai b'yom ahu yu li la'am shanti b'tochecha v'yedat ki Adonai tzivot shelachani eleyeh v'nachal Adonai et Yudah chelko al admat hakodesh ha'od b'Yerushalayim hasko basar mipnei Adonai ki ne'om mim'on kodsho. And then I go to the very last lines. And this, as I say, is the tie-in also with Hanukkah because of the image of the menorah. Page 622. Vayishav hamalach hadover bi v'yareini ki ish asher or mishnato ve'elai ma ata ro'eh vayomer raiti hinei menorah zahav kula v'gula arosha v'shiv'a neroteh aleha shiva mutzakot lenerot asher rosha shnayim zitim aleha echad miyamin v'agola v'chad asmola v'an v'omar hamalach hadover bi lemor ma'ele Adoni vayan hamalach hadover hamalach hadover bi ve'elai halo yadata ma hema ele v'omer lo Adoni yan v'omer elai lemor zeh devar Adonai el Zerubbabel lemor lo v'chayev v'lo b'kach im beruchi amar Adonai tzvaot mi ata hagadol lifnei Zerubbabel lemishor v'otzi et ha'even harosha shuot chen la. So I'm going to return the Torah to the Ark, and we have the prayer for the United States. Invite someone. Jeff, would you read that page 415, but come up here, stand in front of the microphone here. You come up here to read it.
115.
Yeah,
150.
yeah. If you speak from here, it'll pick you up. Come.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
A prayer for our country. Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its government, for its leader and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights of your Torah, that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony to banish all hatred and bigotry and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions which are the pride and glory of our country. May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom and helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say,
Amen. Amen. Okay. And for the people in the state of Israel, very difficult times, we have great concern, being warned about the possibility of a breakout of fighting in the north with Hezbollah, and Hezbollah threatening Cyprus, which might be good for Israel, because if they threaten Cyprus, they get in trouble with Greece also, in which case Lebanon, the military would be forced to shut down the Hezbollah. Maybe that, whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make mad, but that can be very expensive. So we hope and pray that nothing happens there and that things settle in Rafah and Rafah also, and that hostages are let free and people can come back to their homes. So everybody talks about the Palestinians in Gaza being displaced. Yes, they're displaced, but nobody knows that a large chunk of Israel has been completely displaced. The northern part of Israel is unlivable. All those people had to move out. Still, the border with Gaza is unlivable. So it is, and still missiles raining down on Israel that nobody talks about. Nobody talks about. Okay, so let us go ahead with the prayer for the people of Israel. I have it here. I'll sing along with me. Avinu Sheba Shamayim, so Yisrael v'galo, barech et medinat Yisrael, v'shei tzmicha gulatenu, hagen aleha bevrat chazdecha, ufros aleha sukat shilomecha, shlachacha v'mitcha, nosher sareh v'yatzeha, taknem beita tova milfanecha, strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Avinu Sheba Shamayim, deliver and crown their efforts with triumph. Avinu Sheba Shamayim, so Yisrael v'galo, bless our land with peace, O God, its inhabitants with lasting joy, and let us say, Amen. Avinu Sheba Shamayim, so Yisrael v'galo, barech et medinat Yisrael, v'shei tzmicha gulatenu, hagen aleha bevrat chazdecha, ufros aleha sukat shlomecha, v'nomar amen. And let's return the Torah to the ark. Volunteer, please. Volunteer. Showing arms. Marcella volunteered, thank you. Page 422. Yeah, okay. The ark opener and the carry Torah.
Yeah.
Okay, page 422. Yalelo Shem Adonai, Kinas Gav Shemo Levado, Hodo Aleretz V'Shamayim, Vayaren Keren Le'amot Tehila, Lechochasi Hidav, Livnei Yisrael Am Kerovo, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Mizmor David, Havul Adonai B'nei Elim, Havul Adonai Kavod Ba'oz, Havul Adonai Kavod Shemo, Ishtachavu Adonai Behadrat Kodesh, Kamayim Ekavodirim, Adonai Mayim Rabim, Kol Adonai Ba'koach, Kol Adonai
Adar. Kol Adonai shaver arazim. Vaishaver Adonai et hazeh halvanon. Yakidem kum egav b'siryon kemo ben remim. Kol Adonai chotzet lavotesh. Kol Adonai yachem midbar. Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh. Kol Adonai cholel ayolot. Sof yorechol kulo merkavot. Adonai lamabul yashav. Vayeshev Adonai melech leolam. Adonai oze amo yitain. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Uvnecho yom Hashem. Uvnecho yom It's Chayim hi lamachazikim ba v'tom cheha me'usha v'racheha nachena v'chol netivotea shalom Iveinu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Hadesh Yameinu Kekedesh. Yeah. Second, let me put this back. Move back around this way. And Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Let's go ahead. We're going to wrap up the service with Enkel Eloheinu and Aleinu. And then an interesting little lesson for us based on the Surgeon General's warning. Not the one about tobacco. Page 508. Ein Keloheinu. Let's all join it together. Ein Keloheinu. Ein Kadoneinu. Ein Kemalkeinu. Ein Kemoshienu. Mech Eloheinu. Mech Adoneinu. Mech Kemalkeinu. Mech Moshienu. Nodel Eloheinu. Nodel Adoneinu. Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adoneinu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adoneinu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shektiru, Avoteinu, Lefanecha Ektoret Hasamim. Page 510, Aleinu together. Yeah. You want to open the ark? Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Aleinu l'shabach ladon hakol ha'tegro leotzei breshit shelo sanu keharotzot velo samanu k'mishpachot adama shelo sam chalkeinu kahem v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שונות שמיים ויוסר ארץ מה שבקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינתו זו יהווה מרומים ואלוהינו אין עוד אממכנו וזולתו ככתוב בתורתו ידעת יום והשיבת אל לבבך כי אדוני הוא אלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחתנו אין עוד כן נקבל לך אדוני אלינו ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד או שמו אחד. Remember those loved ones who passed away this year: Ed Grush, Sylvia Grush, Michael Sherman, Susan Tuchman, Lane Goldsmith, Herb Lieberman, Yoav Doron, and all those who died in defense of the land of Israel and the people of Israel. For all of them we pray in our hearts and in our minds. Page 512. Yeah.
The years of my mother-in-law.
Oh,
Raquel Batsti.
Rachel Batzvi, the mother-in-law of Marcelo Kupferwasser. What was her English name? No, in English,
Elizabeth
Elizabeth
Klein.
Klein. Remember, be for a blessing. Anyone else have any other names?
Barbara Sitar.
Barbara Sitar. Remember, be for a blessing. Oh, I'll recite on behalf of everyone. Yitkadav Yikadash Mirabah. Bi'amad Ibrach Yirutei V'yanich Malchutei B'chayechon V'yamechon V'chay L'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'agalav Zman Kariv V'imru Amen Yehei Shmei Rabba Borach Lama Me'oyah Yibarach V'yishtabach V'yipa'ar V'yitrama V'yitnasei V'yithadar V'yitalev V'yithalal Shemei D'kudsha Berichu Leila Min Kol Bir Chata V'shirata Tush B'chata V'nechemata Darim V'yomar V'imru Amen Yehei Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'koiseh V'imru Amen Ose Shalom Bimromav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'koiseh V'imru Amen. Amen. Okay, so here we go. Please be seated. A little bit of learning, and then I'm going to give me 1 second to find it. Let's see, is this what we got? Yeah, now you see what we got. That's what I wanted to see. We're going to talk about Lashon Hara. Anybody know? Everybody knows what's when I say Lashon Hara? Lashon Hara, what do I mean? All right, bad mouthing. So I was thinking about this week as it ties in with the Torah portion. I think every parent was a little relieved to hear the Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Murthy, recommend the warning label be posted on social media, just like we have warning labels on cigarettes and there are warning labels on alcohol ads. Need warning labels for parents to know they should keep their kids off social media as much as they can. And of course, what's going to happen is those parents that were smart enough to do this before we're doing it, and those that didn't have control of the kids won't have control of the kids anyway. That's a problem in parenting today. But we see it as a plague on youngsters today, and we know that easy access to social media led to online bullying and shaming, and even in supposedly good Beverly Hills, middle school students shared a photoshopped image of a classmate in a very compromising position. Something never happened. Right? You learn how to use Photoshop, and the damage was done. Very damaging to that child. So we can understand what the damage is. And if the damage is for youngsters, it's just as big for oldsters, right? Because a lot of people since COVID got addicted to watching the little screen because they can't get back to normal life. By the way, one of the things we do see employers are complaining now. Young people coming to the job market for the first time, they're coming to job interviews. They can't look at the interviewer in the face. They haven't learned how to look at a person, they look at a screen. So they really don't know how to look at it. And then 20% bring their parents with them to the first job interview because they really don't know how to. It's been reported, yeah. They haven't learned how to interact with people. They're not secure, and they want their parents to come in. My Johnny should get the job because it's very hard, right? And that's an outcome of the COVID, the isolation they went through. So certainly this social media is added to it. So I can envision a whole series of warning labels coming out now. This is not a new one. TikTok with a line across it. It's from Wikimedia Commons. Yeah, get rid of the nonsensical video shorts. Yeah.
So the comment which caught my attention, there is in TikTok, there was a site in which the father and the son were discussing regular things. And the father was kind of criticizing the son was criticizing the father, and it was a very good communication between them. And the commentary said, well, if you use the media in this way, where parents also are involved, it could be a positive effect.
Yeah, except we don't. What we do know is that our young adults get all their news feed now They don't go to CNN, they don't go to Fox, they don't go to the LA Times or anybody's Times. They get all their news feed from these little short video clips. So they don't understand what the world. They see a picture of this, the picture. Oh, that's what they're being fed with. So if we got rid of TikTok, Chinese will lose some money, but it'd be okay. But then I saw somebody beat me to the punch on the symbol for TikTok. So I said, I'll get creative. So I took Instagram and I put my stop sign on Instagram. Yeah, and Instagram images, whatever. Nobody wants to see these images, so stop it. Yeah, and then okay, the X, other source of irritation, right? Twitter, X, right now it's called X, and I can't even believe it. All government notifications now come out through Twitter or X. So everything important the government has to say is reduced to 280 characters, including questions periods. Entire government documents retorted to tweet. All right, so if we got rid, maybe we'd be much happier. Then I could actually see what the document is. So, but this is not old, this is not new. Our Jewish tradition has dealt with this kind of stuff. Loose bombardment of truths and half-truths, which are worse than outright lies. The first tweet is actually in the Bible, in Ecclesiastes, Kohelet 10, chapter 10. Gam b'mada'echa melech al tikala. Even among your closest circle, don't say anything against the king. Don't revile a rich man even in your bedchamber to your wife, or even alone, because of hashamayim yolich et hakol, v'haknafayim yaged d'rarecha. A bird of the air, Twitter, may carry your utterance, and a winged creature may report the word. Right? Nothing new. Something similar as rabbinic saying. Somebody says something in the land of Israel. It's heard in Rome, and the axe falls again in Israel. That's something about that. So that's the first Twitter in history, first tweet, and maybe that's why Musk preferred X instead of tweeting. So anyway, it's the danger of loose talk. He'll talk about it's not a Jewish problem only, it's not a modern problem. We all had to learn Othello at some point in school, and there's a famous line by Iago: "Who steals my purse steals trash. 'Tis nothing. But he that filches from me my good name robs me of that which not enriches him, makes me poor indeed." And this, the irony, of course, like Shakespeare, the man saying this, Iago, is the master of bad lashon hara, the master of denouncing, the master of killing people by slander. All the good people in the play get killed, including him. Right? He's the one who's teaching us about a good name. Right, we go to the Torah portion this week. I started to talk about this, about in Baalotcha, tying in with our Torah portion, Miriam and Aaron speaking against Moses. The Hebrew word doesn't say against Moses, it's the interpretation. It says Vatomer Miriam Aaron al Odot, in regard to. When there was rabbis, when you say it this way, the phrasing means you're coming to criticize, right? And God answers, says, listen, I'm the only one that God talks to. You guys get out of it. And Miriam gets punished because she's the one who takes the lead. Aaron, remember, is always dragged along. In everything that happens, Aaron is never the leader. You notice that. In the golden calf, he's dragged along. Miriam is the leader. Very powerful one in the family. We know she's the strong one in the family also. So she is the one. Moses is meek. Notice, and it says, Moses anav ma'od, is very meek. So God has to rise to his defense, right? Moses is not very good for standing up for himself. We see that through the accounts of Moses. It really is. He's always going back to God. He needs support. He doesn't know how to answer Miriam, so God does, and God strikes Miriam with leprosy. So leprosy, mitzorah, tzara'at, rabbinic interpretation is leprosy is punishment for mitzorah, motzi, shem ra, one who takes out a bad name about somebody else, speaking evil. So she is criticized Moses, even though it's a private criticism, even there, it's very bad to do it. So the next portion, next week, the rabbis understand when the spies come with their report of Israel, the land of Israel, they're also speaking evil of the land of Israel. So it's lashon hara, even about a piece of land, because of criticism of God, right? Yeah.
So does the person have to be living for people Shahara?
Oh, to badmouth somebody.
Different things like you can speak about the dead, but also heard you can't speak ill of the dead. Like, or either someone's not around.
It has a, yeah, because they can't defend themselves.
Right.
Right? So if it's a, and again, it's a great question. I'm going to show you some examples. Are we talking about something that's essential to understanding something, or is it something just to make people feel bad about that person or feel good about themselves in contrast? Right? What's I'm going to give you some examples. Right? Not necessarily about that, but it's a very good point. Yeah. So here's some warning labels that we have in Jewish sources. Surgeon General may put on his labels. Lo telech rachil ba'amcha, Leviticus 19. Do not go up and down as a talebearer. That's the general translation. Rachil. So rachil in modern Hebrew, rechilut meaning gossip. It's from the word rochel. What is a rochel? Rochel is a peddler. What does a peddler do? He takes his merchandise and goes from place to place and sells his merchandise. The gossiper has merchandise that everybody wants to hear. And the gossiper, of course, sells the merchandise for free, usually. And then Rashi has another explanation for rochel from the word meragel, which is one who's snooping, spying on the neighbor to find something bad intentionally in order to find flaws. So, another perspective about the dangers of loose lips. Chaim v'mavet biyad halashon, life and death are in the hands of the tongue. Biyad halashon, literally, in the hand of the tongue, means in the power of the word, figuratively. But the rabbis asked this question, how can it be that it says biyad halashon? Well, we can say the tongue doesn't have a hand. It tells you just as a hand can kill, so a tongue can kill. So if you were to say, well, but the hand kills only close by, the people nearby, where can the tongue only affect people around you? He says, no, the hand also fires an arrow, which can kill at a distance. So the phrase, the tongue is as a sharpened arrow from Jeremiah, just as the hand can pull a bow that kills at a far distance, the tongue releases words that can kill at a distance. Oh, great example. Then they go into this in another source. Danger of bearing evil news, even if it's true, with ill intention. They learn from the story of Saul. Saul destroys an entire city of priests, city of Nob, because the inhabitants had given shelter to David, who he sees as his enemy. And so they refer to gossip as a triple header, thalita, triple, like a triad or a threesome in regards to talebearing. Because why? Discuss this. Why is it a triple header? It kills three. Kills the one who says it, eventually will come back. It kills the one who listens and accepts it because it's going to do something wrong as a result, and it'll come back and hit that person. And it kills, obviously, the one that's said against, calumniated. Three. Triple danger. So he gives the example, days of Saul, actually four. One more. Doeg, who is Saul's advisor, who reports it. He says he was there. He saw David getting protection. Comes back. He betrays them. Saul listened to him. And of course, then he goes mad and executes the entire town. And then, of course, ultimately Saul dies himself as a result of his crimes coming back on him. And Achimelech, the chief priest there in Nob, because he's the one who was slandered, and he's killed. He's shot because he sheltered David. And then finally Avner, one of the aides to Saul and later to David. Why was Avner killed? The rabbis say he did not let, it's the aide to David, I'm sorry. He knew about this. He could have made peace between David and Saul, and he didn't. In other words, he could have some way assuaged. Huh? No, they say the rabbinic midrash.
But how he can force it is Shaul tried to kill David.
Right. So it's at the point where David finds Saul and cuts his robe. I think that's where the discussion is.
Yeah.
And so he could have solved it, and he failed to. And some say he had it in his power to intervene for Nob, and he did not intervene. He could have said a good word, and he didn't. He could have gone in. So the idea being, you're involved in it.
Get to the point to hurt another Jew, to kill him.
His own son.
Any word would help.
I know. It's his own
The
son.
king
I know.
was like the holy priest.
I know. His own son. We know.
And this is what to show us. When someone crazy about to have a power,
Yeah.
he will kill everybody to have
That's
a
true.
power.
That's true.
But he did ask Abner if like if he should let him go.
Yeah.
And Abner said like, oh, do you think he's?
No, but I'm saying, no, but
Nah.
if someone want to kill, if a Jew want to kill another Jew,
Yeah.
so crazy, any word would not help.
Yeah.
But he did ask Abner
Yeah.
if he should. pursue-
So here, again, this is Yerushalmi Pei. I have to go back 2,000 years to explain to them, which is a good point, but I have to go back 2,000 years to explain to them the problem. What they're trying to get at is this, the moral of the story. So that slander affects not only the people involved in the slander, but even the people who hear and could then stop it, could do something to intervene, right? And they fail. Abner eventually gets it in the end also. So it's in there 1 or 3 times a day. We add at the end of the meter, what do we say? My God, guard my tongue from evil, my lips from speaking deceitfully. It's the very end of the Amida. It's a private prayer that we add. Where does it come from? It comes directly from Psalms 34, and it asks the question, how do we gain life? And you may have seen this. Mi ha'isha chafetz chaim, ohev yamim lirot tov. Who is the man who is eager for life? The word chafetz chaim, desirous of life. Lirot tov, to see years of good fortune. And the answer is nitzor l'shoncha merabah, v'sfatecha midaber mirma. Keep your tongue from saying bad, and your lips from deceitful speech, right? And so there is a popular song. I'm not going to try to put, I wanted to put it on, but I'm having trouble with the connection. So, but it's perfect, you know?
Continue,
So, that's right, that's it. But the whole song is, the melody, you know the song? Mi ha'ish, hafetz chaim, ohev yamim, ohev yamim, liroto, nitzor l'shon chamera, usfatecha, midaber mirma, sumera, akishalom, v'rotvehu. Very good. So now, right, we need bakesh shalom.
With the anti-Semitism, what's going on? So it is between us.
At least we should be, yeah, we need to deal with ourselves. Yes, very much so. So now, this Mihaisha Chafetz Chaim brings me to the person who's going to give me some examples of what we do. And that is a rabbi who wrote a book which is of the same title of the opening verses, Chafetz Chaim, and he became known by that title. So nobody uses his name ever, they just say the Chafetz Chaim. Wrote at the end of the previous century, before the century, in the beginning of the previous century. Here's a copy of the book, Chafetz Chaim, and the quotation, Mi ha'isha chafetz chaim, who is the person that is desirous of life? Keep your mouth from evil, right? The Surgeon General's warning on the label, that's what I'm talking about. Yichot Yisrei L'shon Hara. Very long book, he writes it. I didn't think of how many different ways there were that one could say something bad about someone till I looked at glanced through it, and I pulled out a few examples. I won't go through all of it because, like I said, it's a pretty long book. So it deals with Jewish laws of speech. This is Rabbi Yisrael Meir HaKohen Kagan. Kagan meaning just being the Russian for Kohen. That's what it is. From Lithuania, halachist, ethicist, posek, author of Mishnah Berurah, which is a great commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. So a very humble and modest man, devoted to his Jewish faith. For a while, he was not ashamed about working in a store, selling some things in a store that he and his wife managed. I think about all I hate to say it, the ones who are now trying to get the exemption from military service because Toratenu Umanutenu, the Torah is our profession, and expect the Israeli population to pay them. That was never the case in Jewish history, that the students were all across the board paid by the entire Jewish community. Only a few select ones. The rest either came from families that could afford it, or they, like the Chafetz Chaim, went to work. Right? This is a disease when you have a society built on handout. It's a disease. It's a warning for us about giving things away without asking for something in return. So anyway, I'm bad mouthing Haredim, so I have to apologize.
That's traditionally what you do is that when you study Torah, you also have a job on the side.
You should be either you should not be begging for money. Now, where is the exception? Always was in East Europe. Always there were the outstanding students. So the outstanding student would be support. Somebody would come and support him because that student was brilliant, and so you were training the future educational leadership. You did not give a blanket subsidy to everybody, which is what has happened in the state of Israel. Yeah. Listen, I got a blanket subsidy. I'll tell you this. I went to rabbinical school, spent a year as a student, and so we were defined as yeshiva students. So we had to come in. We got a subsidy from the government. And the people doing this were some Haredim, very Orthodox, long hat, and they were the ones who were required to fill out the forms and authorize it. And they were here, these, in their eyes, we were heretics, but they still, that's the rule, they did it. So, yeah, okay. That's what you have in a socialized system, I have to say. That's a problem. So now it's no longer a socialized system, but once you're on the receiving end, you don't give up easily, and that's very dangerous. So I'm not going to blame the Haredim, I'm going to blame the system.
Can we say who stopped the socialized system?
Huh?
Can we
Oh, we just
say-
under Begin.
What?
Begin
No.
was the first. But yeah, no, but then Netanyahu had the second. But you know what else?
Now start with the economy.
Yeah, economics.
Begin didn't know it, Begin didn't know anything, and it caused a big inflation.
That's a
It was
but-
a few 100%.
I know.
You pay
I know,
$10,
yeah.
you pay
But his advisor, I knew his advisor. His economic advisor was a student of Milton Friedman, the anti-socialist. He davened in the synagogue that I was in, that I went to. He was a student of Milton Friedman. He was Begin's economic advisor. So it was a free market.
The advisor and to have advisor and to listen, the advisor was
Two different things. But even already under Rabin in Paris, they were already freeing the market. And I worked with the Histadrut, and by 1990, the Histadrut had dropped socialism. The Labor Party dropped the word socialism. Histadrut was selling off its industries. They were privatizing.
They're selling it because they lost money.
Yeah,
And it was one company I would like
yeah.
to say.
Core was selling
No,
some.
no, one company I like to say, they have 92 employers. And they privatized it and they dropped it immediately to 80. They said we don't need it.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't want to badmouth. So the whole thing is about not badmouthing. But what's nice, Rabbi Kagan was venerated by Jews and non-Jews alike. They would even, the non-Jews would even walk in his steps just to be inspired by his footsteps. So, few things that's picked out of the Silverstein translation on safaria.org. And he says, what is the cause of the exile? There are many, but the sin of Lashon Hara above all, for several reasons, the major cause of the exile. And as long as we do not undertake to correct the sin, how can there be a redemption? The sin being so severe as to cause us to be exiled from our land. Not idolatry, not anything else, Lashon Hara, because it led to everything wrong. So he goes in some of the commandments. One who bears tales against his friend transgresses a negative commandment. So Vayikra, Leviticus 19, do not go tale-bearing. I mentioned that one. What is tale-bearing? Loading oneself with words and going from one to another, saying, this is what so-and-so, Plony, meaning so-and-so, said about you. This is what I heard Plony so-and-so did to you. And the greater sin than that is speaking disparagingly of one's fellow, even if it's true. You know that so-and-so did this. It may be true, but it's not in the right place, not the right time. And the worst is the one who actually speaks falsehood. That's where Motzi Shemra, he talks in that one being actual falsehood. So do not post it on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok in the first place, even if it's true. That's the concept. And then the speaker or the receiver of Lashon Hara, what happened here? Get out of here. Okay, stop. The receiver also transgresses. Lo tisah shem mashav. Do not receive a false report, which can also be read as do not spread a false report. Tisah meaning to carry and to give. So that includes both the receiver and the speaker, both. So if you get a post from someone that is bad, don't open it. And if you do open it, don't retweet it or don't repost it or don't click like. That's it. Stop it. Stop it on the spot. And then he also transgresses a positive commandment. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. We should be as solicitous for our friends' money, property, as we are for our own. Be solicitous of our friends' honor and speak in his praise. as we're solicitors for our own honor. Then the question is, how much do we speak in honor, right? Because that can also be used as a weapon. So, you might cause that person to lose livelihood, right? That's one of the things. Publicize a friend as being dishonest or as a worker being unfit for work. Then you cause the violation of the book laws in Vayikra. If your brother goes poor and falls because of you, you must uphold him. He should live with you. You may not allow your neighbor to lose his livelihood and her livelihood because of what you have said. So remember that also when you post these things, it all shows up at your job interview when your boss asks you and interviews your neighbor for a job, right? And you may do damage. Okay. What about whether you initiate the slander or it's only because your friend is saying, tell me, what have you heard? In other words, oh, I cannot tell a lie. He asked me, I cannot tell a lie, so I'll tell you. No, even if it's his father or his rabbi. And he says, tell me about him. Really should not, right? Because he's creating a condition where it may impugn somebody's reputation. Also, whether by mouth or in a letter. So that would include a false tweet online. No difference whether he speaks it explicitly or by a sign, like making a face when you're talking about somebody. Or the modern version, you put an emoji or a GIF in describing that person. All the modes, it's a category of Lashon Hara. And even if you say, you know, I'm not a great guy, but he's worse. Meaning I'm not great, but he's worse, you're doing damage, right? Even if I go in and say, now, I'm going to tell you something, but let none of this be made known by you. I'm telling you a secret because we know if I tell you in secret, it's going to be made public. Your friend has a friend, right? You can't dig into the person's history. Don't go digging into Google. Now, he will ask the question, what about a job where it's significant? It must be very specific to that person. What about the lecturer in the house of study, the Rav in the Beit Midrash? You may not mock him. You may not say that there's nothing to his lectures and that he has nothing new to say. And we see that many people are remiss in this, not considering mockery as an issur also. In other words, the teacher is very boring, and you say the teacher is boring, and you tell everybody the teacher is boring. You may not do that. That's Lashon Hara. Why? Because he will lose his occupation. What you cannot do is defame somebody. In fact, there's an example, I can't remember the source, where it says, you may say about a rabbi that he's not a good chazan. His livelihood doesn't depend on it, that's just a fact. You may not say about a chazan, you may say about a chazan, he's not good as a preacher. But you cannot say about his chazanut, right? If the rabbi cannot talk about his preaching of the chazan, right? Those things that are critical to the livelihood and status, you may not demean them. So this is also for college students. Ever since I was in college, I started having students rank teachers by how popular they are. And so teachers would do everything to gain a good ranking, whether they were teaching correctly or teaching well or passing information. And that has corrupted the education system in the universities, just for that reason.
It's, it's like a social glue.
Yeah. So I remember this because it started when I was in college. They asked you to give a ranking about the teacher. Entertaining, intriguing, does he listen to you, blah, blah. So the teacher would be afraid of that rank because then it would go back to the committee and his tenure would depend on it. So what if you had the greatest thinker for whatever the topic is, and he happens to be a very poor lecturer? So he drones on, but you're sitting there. If you're a student, you're going to listen because you know there's information you need. But if I'm grading you by how entertaining you are, where's the education, right? And that's, so therefore, don't knock the professor, don't knock the rabbi, no matter how boring. Okay. I'm going to just wrap up here. Trade secrets. Also, he goes into trade secrets, says in dealing with trade secrets, if you are talking to several people about trade, if it is agreed, and you don't have like a non-disclosure, if it is agreed that you may talk about this profession, the person who's giving you the
information, how to make a certain kind of leather, let's say, whatever it is. And he says, I'm fine with you sharing, then it's okay. But if you've been told this is a secret, that is a secret, right? So, but it needs to be very clear. It needs to be very clear. This will come today's non-disclosure agreements, right? Let me just go ahead. Job application. If it goes into, you want to bring somebody into your business with you to hire or not hire and so on. You may make inquiries to the person about the character, but it has to be very specific. That's number one, to the job, specific to the position, and it must be made known to the job applicant. I want you to know, I'm going to be asking people just about your experience. You have to be upfront about it. Right? So we may be, by the way, today, in job inquiries, when you ask a previous employer for a referral, what may they tell you? So you don't get sued. They may tell you, yes, so-and-so was employed by me from this year and this year, and he was employed in this and this particular position. I may not tell you how much he made. I may not tell you if he was good or bad. I may not tell you if I sacked him for some reason. All these disclosures, right?
They can't say that.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you watch carefully, very carefully at the job, because the minute you do, you're wide open for a lawsuit. Very, very, very difficult today.
How about whistleblowers?
Whistleblowers, the great debates, where's the protection to whistleblower? Now, so is the whistleblower, theoretically, is coming to reveal a danger to the public. So danger to the public overrides the secrecy of the employer. Very clearly, very clearly. Same as when you know that, the problem that the priest in confession has. I don't know what the old ruling is. Somebody says, priest, you must confess, I'm going to go out and kill so-and-so. Does the priest have an obligation to call the police at that point? I don't know what the Catholic Church position is. The same thing is holds on attorneys and psychiatrists also, where they know something is bad about that. I don't think the law protects them. I don't think the law protects them. That's a client privilege. Anyway, so those are just a few things. I'm not going to keep on and on and on, but you have the.
I have a controversial one.
Good, yeah.
You sure? Okay. What
Okay.
about, okay, what about the whole Talmud talks about one of Yeshua and the trash in the Talmud? Is that considered Lashon Hara?
Okay, good
Based
question.
on
There's a lot of terrible stuff.
They wrote false reports about and edited by Romans.
Yeah, so there's a lot of negative stuff in the Gemara. Now, one of the things we do know is the Gemara is written where? 500 miles away from the land of Israel, 400 years after the fact. So they're only getting what? They're getting that information after the Christian church has come to power and started persecuting in Rome and started persecuting Jews. So they have, we may call it an interest in defending their fellow Jews and denouncing, right? So, but that is a very good question, because quite obviously now you're coming into things that are life and death issues, right? It wasn't like the local, and there weren't life and death issues in the relation between Jews and Christians in the early years. There were terrible fights in between the two. Sometimes the Jews also got involved in fights against Christians in the early years of Christianity.
Christian, that's about the Jewish people, I get it.
Yeah, no, but even then, even before, there were fights. The Jewish community in the beginning was trying to suppress the early Christian community. So both sides would get very tough. And it wasn't not just with Christians. There were many other groups, breakaway groups, similar, that later coalesced into the Christian fold. It was just an easy fold, like what we call the Gnostics as a movement that was parallel, rising in parallel. It was a mystery group. It was rising in parallel with both Judaism and Christianity at that time. So, and some of it's blended into both sides. So, but yeah, the stuff in the Talmud is very anti. Yeah, it is. Now, what we also know is the printed editions of the Talmud that we have all been sanitized by a lot of these statements being removed or changed. So, for example, yeah,
Can they edit Talmud?
the Christian governments forced the editing. So, for example, in a printed edition of Talmud,
you'll see that one may not do so and so with kuti. The word kuti being a reference to the ancestors of the Samaritans from Syria. But the text has nothing to do with Samaritans. It's because the original text was minim, which means any of the heretical groups, like early Christianity or like the Gnostic groups, and were to be ostracized. But since the Christian church was in charge of the printing press, they said, you're going to remove this from your print. You're going to put something else. We have that. We see that process. Yeah. Aleinu was changed because of that. The Ashkenazic Aleinu that we have was edited. Right. So the line was taken out. Right. So the Sephardim have it. The Hasidim still have it in their text. Anyway, so that, now you've had your warning label, right? Now you have from the Chavis. You may go online if you want. It is in Safari, .org, which is an interesting source for many, many texts. And they do a very good job of bringing translations. You should also throw away your newspapers, your tabloids, and believe me, life will be much better and you'll be much happier. Right. So that is our discussion for today. Let's go back. We're going to wrap up with Adon Olam all together, page 514. Kol Ram together, full voice. Oh, wait, one last thing. Steve, you mentioned about somebody who's dead. There's the famous speech in Julius Caesar. Friends, Roman's countrymen, Lemire, I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. For the good that men do is often interred with their bones, but the evil lives after. In other words, the danger of the evil report being, if people forget what good was being done, and only the evil. So the ruling is at a funeral, someone must say a good word. And that's the word, the origin of the word eulogy, meaning a good word about someone. So the story is, and I've been at funerals where there was no good word. I've been at funerals. And the son had no good word for the father, and nobody showed up. I had a case like that. So there was a story about the two grave diggers digging a grave for somebody who was the town crook. They said, well, we have to say something good about him. What can we say good about him? He says, his brother was worse. We call faint praise a damning praise. All right, so Adon Olam together. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'et Na'asa V'chefso Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nekra V'yacharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora V'hu haya, v'hu hove, v'hu yeh b'tif'ara, v'hu echad, v'ein sheni, lehamshir lo, lehachbira, b'li reishi, b'li tachlit, v'lo ha'oz, v'hamisra, v'hu eli, v'chai gali, v'tzochev li, v'eitzara, Vehu nese umanos li menat kosi beyom ekra beyado afkiduchi beiti sham b'yaira b'yimeruchi geviati Adonai li v'lo Shabbat shalom.